Today's class, I really want to talk about how we look in front of our consumer. So last week's class, we talked a little bit about mindset. We talked about the difference between being a superstar and a super servant. So I'm going to ask you guys a couple questions, and I want some honest opinions from each of you as it relates to the imagery that comes to mind. And please, this is interactive, so I need you guys to respond. So what is the first word that comes to mind when you hear the word police officer? Servant.
Danger.
The law.
The law, okay. So we all have an experience in our mind of what the police officer is to us. And is it safe to say that based on our own experiences, we choose to view them in a certain way, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent?
Sure.
I honestly believe that we are exactly the same product when it comes to talking with our clients. Most everybody in the world today has or knows somebody that they consider their mortgage consultant or their loan officer. And based on their dealings and their experiences with them in the past, defines who we are to them. Is that fair? Is that a fair explanation?
Yeah.
So every time we meet with a consumer, there's a pretty good bet that they already believe we are somebody that we may or may not be before we even open our mouth, just because of the title of what we do.
Yes, probably.
Today's class is going to be centered around shifting that and creating that mindset to help us deliver our own imagery to them. It's up to us within a matter of a very short period of time to create an image for our borrowers that fits for what we want them to see us as. What is the average time it takes for us to make a first impression? Like, how long does it take for somebody to make a first impression? How long do we get before somebody judges us after we first?
2 minutes, maybe? A minute, 2 minutes?
I'd say immediately.
I'd say almost immediately, right? Based on how we talk on the phone, to the moment that they meet us face to face, to the moment they shake hands with us, right? We're always creating an imagery, and we're always creating a feeling for our borrowers. And so from the moment that our phone rings and we have an opportunity to work with a consumer, it's up to us to be very, very cognizant of what it is that we're doing to help perpetuate what we talked about last week, which was becoming more of a super servant and less of a superstar, focusing more on the relationship and less on the transactions. Now, the class that I did earlier this week, it was kind of eye-opening to me that the people that have been in the class now for the past 8 months have started to ramp up their business to where their leads are starting to change again. They're getting more leads, but they're not getting the quality leads that we have been coaching on, which was getting current client referrals and past client referrals. They're getting a ton from realtors, which is great, but they've lost the sight of what it means to create a relationship with somebody because they're quote unquote too busy. The point of what I'm trying to get across to you guys is working on the fundamental basis of how you communicate to your borrowers shouldn't matter how busy you are or how slow you are. You should communicate the same way every single time because there's a reason to do so. So what you guys see on the screen right now is something that's always really meant a lot to me. You know, your comfort zone is always that little area that we always want to hide in and be comfortable in and not really expose ourselves past that. But the real magic happens in our business when we get beyond that and start looking at really who we are and then being able to communicate that value to our borrowers. So every one of us in our careers, whether it's been violin restoration or whether it's been in loans or whether it's been in real estate, has always gotten a referral. Somebody's always endorsed us. Somebody's always said, you should go talk to Denise or Larissa or David. And everybody can remember that experience pretty vividly, or at least the most recent one.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Can one of you guys kind of tell me a little bit about what that experience felt like, please?
Well, it felt great because the client sort of, paved the way. They said what a great job, they did, that I did for them and how I helped them and everything that I did to help them get into their home. So it paved the way. So by the time the client, I was talking to the referral that they gave me, it made it very simple as far as starting a rapport and talking to them about their needs and the relationship that I had from the referral base, from the person that had handed it.
Would you say that it was fair that it made a deposit in your day? I mean, it made a deposit into your emotional bank account?
Definitely.
Did you feel better about yourself? It kind of validated everything you do?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yes, for sure.
Imagine how your day would look and how you would go home feeling if every day you were able to generate 1 to 2 referrals that came into you proactively, and you could control it. Imagine if I could teach you on how to dial in that volume and turn it down when you didn't want it, instead of living on this, what I've coined the term as called hopium. If you had the tools and you had the techniques to be able to do that, would that be of value to you guys?
Yes, absolutely.
If you could consistently generate enough leads coming in based on referrals that are coming from people that already know you, like you, and trust you, and you get the call, doesn't it make you feel significantly more valuable and a lot more, I want to say energized, but that's not the right word. So when you go home, you don't feel like the day has beaten you up. You go home feeling like the day that gave you more to be able to come home and be the mom or the father or the husband or the spouse to whoever's in your life, right?
It juices you up, absolutely. It juices you
up.
It does.
It does. It juices you up. And I think that's probably why my career in the industry lasted so long, or why many of us have lasted so long, is because we chase that feeling of how good it does feel when somebody says, wow, and thank you. Well, the reason that we're going to do this class today is going to be able to take those moments and we're going to make them more predictable. We're going to make them more controllable. And we're going to start off by being able to communicate our values so that we set the stage properly. So let me give you guys an analogy real quick. I want to invite you guys into a movie. And I'm telling you guys that it's an action flick. Big sounds, big picture, over-the-top excitement, great soundtrack. You guys are going to love it. And you guys come in and sit in the theater, and the door and the screen opens, and pretty soon it's a musical given on by a bunch of 5th graders. What happens? What happens in your mind when that unfolds in front of you?
Frustration.
Do you feel like you've been cheated a little?
Yeah, sold a bag of goods. Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Ah, okay. Yeah, you've been sold a bag of goods. So you feel like what's been presented, though it's entertainment, isn't necessarily what you agreed to do or participate in, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. That's kind of how it feels to our consumers when we go through the mortgage process and then we ask them for help, or if we ask them for a referral. And we've all known those realtors or other lenders who put on their business card, a referral is the best compliment I can get. Or when you go to your bank and the bank says, hey, I will pay you $25 if you refer a friend. Or if you go someplace and they ask you to help them with something, but it wasn't an agreement that you had coming into it. Have we all experienced something similar to that?
Yeah.
Yep. I have a bank that I used to do business with that every time I pulled up into the drive-in would always go, if you refer a family friend or a friend or a relative, we'll deposit $25 into your bank account. And I always felt so uncomfortable with that because that's not why I chose to use the bank in the first place. And so every time they asked me, it felt like I was being sold, or I felt like I was being cheated. Even though they were offering money, it still didn't make me feel comfortable. And so one of the greatest, probably one of the greatest missteps that we have in our businesses is that we all seek this validation. We all seek the opportunity to get a referral, because let's be honest, we all want to do a really good job for our clients. One, because we know that's who we are, but two, because we hope that the people that we're doing the good job for will refer us. Isn't that kind of like an unspoken rule? Isn't that like an unspoken law that we all try to adhere to?
Yeah.
David, would you agree?
Yep, totally.
Okay, so why then, if we agree with how uncomfortable it feels to be sold a bag of goods that wasn't an agreed upon in the beginning, why then do we not start the beginning of the relationship off on the right foot? And there's a couple reasons why. Most of the reasons why we don't go into a relationship setting proper expectations is, one, we've never been trained. 2, a lot of the times we forget to ask. 3, we're not referable. We talked about that last week. 4, we haven't shifted our mindset from being a salesperson to a consultant. And the last one is that we're uncomfortable asking for help. Now, of the 3 of you that are on this call, I don't think there's a single person on this call that's uncomfortable asking for help. I mean, we have 2 Latin women, and we've got a gentleman who's...
I'm actually on the call too. This is Kaysen. I'm down there about 5 minutes late.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Travis, I didn't realize that you didn't show up, buddy.
Kaysen. It's Kaysen, actually.
Oh, Kaysen, how you doing, buddy? I'm sorry, I didn't see you on the call.
Yeah,
Travis,
sorry. I'm having trouble with go to meeting because I didn't want to interrupt your meeting.
No problem. No problem. Do you have access to, are you able to look on the computer? Are you able to see a computer screen?
I'm trying to. I don't know what's going on with GoToMeeting. It's sitting and spinning right now, so I just didn't want to interrupt the meeting. So
Nope, I appreciate it. Okay, welcome.
Travis is on the call too.
Oh, hey, Travis, you guys, yeah, GoToMeetings isn't recognizing either of you two, so thank you guys for piping in. I appreciate it.
I can't get on GoToMeeting. That's the problem.
Yeah, I can't either for some reason.
Okay, well, I'll send out the replay tomorrow, so you guys will see the PowerPoint that I'm going to be presenting here in a little bit. So if you guys just want to sit back and listen, that'd be awesome. Right. So going back to what I said, so I don't think that there's anybody on this call that's uncomfortable asking for help. So I'm not even going to address that. But I think the number one issue that we all run into is that many of us have never been trained how to appropriately set the stage for our clients to understand who we are and what we're about. Okay, so I'm going to open you guys up this PowerPoint presentation, explain to you how I used to do it in front of my clients before it became so conversational with me that I didn't need to use the PowerPoint anymore, but it's a great reference point. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to stop and ask. So does everybody see the whole airplane and how I work on the page?
I see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to explain to you guys a little bit about what happens when a client walked into my office. So by the time the client walked into my office and met with me, I first had decided that I wasn't going to do business with anybody unless they were able to meet with me face to face. That in and of itself was a mindset for me, largely due in part to the fact that I believed that I was a much more successful consultant face to face than I was over the telephone. Some of you may or may not agree with that, and there's no right or wrong answer. That's just simply my mindset. I believe that when I got belly to belly with somebody, I was much more capable of being able to build a relationship with them in a shorter period of time, and that helped transfer the commoditized part of my business into a more relational aspect. So when somebody sat down with me, I started the conversation with how I work. And the first one is, I always started off with what we all knew everybody was thinking. Everybody walked in and met with, everybody that meets with us always has in their back of the mind, well, what happens if I don't like you? What happens if I don't want to work with you? What happens if you don't offer me what it is that I'm looking for? So there's this animosity or this tension that's created between the consumer and the consultant that much the same way that in our life, I had a recent experience with this when I went to Home Depot. So I'm going to be building some steps in my backyard with some timbers, and I've never done it before, but it looks like a job that I think I can do. So I walked into Home Depot to get some advice, and people at Home Depot, if you guys have ever been in, there's usually somebody who greets you when you walk in and says, is there anything I can help you with? And it was funny because at that time I walked in and there was this older gentleman, probably in his late 50s, early 60s, and he said, how can I help you? And I said, I'm looking at building some steps out of timbers. And he goes, you know what? I actually just completed that same project in my backyard 2 weeks ago. Come on, I'm going to teach you how to do it. And so the gentleman walked me through all the different facets of what I needed to do with the timbers and the rebar and the tile nails and how to pre-drill them and how to create the dead man. And I sit there listening to this guy, and by the time he was done, I was ready to buy all the products without even having to question how much it cost. Do you think that most of the people that are experts in their field don't really ever get challenged on price?
Surgeons don't.
I think for the most part, people don't ask if you address it
People don't
beforehand
ask
in another way.
Okay, So
if you,
when somebody,
if you address it in another fashion.
so if you're able to extract the questions that people are afraid to ask or don't know to ask from their mind, and you're able to put them out there, what does that do to your credibility as a consultant? Let me say it in another way. Let me say it in another way. If you know what I'm thinking and you address those fears of mine without me having to ask you, how does that elevate your relationship with me? Does that make you look more like a relationship-based or very engaged or concerned or empathetic person, or does it make you feel more like a transactional, like you're just really in it for yourself?
It's like you know what they want. I mean, and you build a sense of, you know, it builds a sense of trust there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we all have a doctor, and I sometimes relate it to a woman's doctor because I feel like a woman's doctor has a much deeper relationship with their patient than most men have with their doctor. So most women don't choose their doctor based on location, based on insurance, based on cost, based on anything other than one factor. And in my opinion, I think it's bedside manner. Would we all agree that our doctor is our doctor largely due in part because of their bedside manner?
Yes, agreed. Yes.
It's their ability to make us feel good. It's their ability to kind of know what we're thinking and feeling and being able to ask us those questions in a way that makes us feel safe and comfortable, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so what you see here on the screen is an example of creating that bedside manner. When you sit down with your consumer and the first question out of your mind is, or the first statement out of your mind is, I just want to let you know that as we go through this process, I want you guys to know it's going to be okay if we choose not to work with each other. I want you to realize that the number one goal that I have in this meeting with you guys today is that you guys go back to the person that referred you and say thank you, regardless if we choose to do business with each other or not, because I want you to know that it's not so important to me that I earn your business. It's more important to me that I earn your willingness to go back to the referral source and say thank you. See, in this process, I'm servicing really two relationships. I'm servicing my relationship with you, and I'm also servicing the relationship that I have with the referral source. So because I'm going to put your needs and your concerns and your fears and your issues at the forefront of everything we talk about, I'm not really concerned with you guys deciding to use me because I know that I'm not the best fit for everybody. But I expect that when we're done that you'll go back to that referral source and say thank you. And so as we uncover what your wants and your needs and your goals are, I want you to know that it's 100% okay for you to say you're not the right person for the job. Because at the same time, I'm going to be doing the same thing to you. See, my business is 100% relationship driven. I grow my practice based on my clients' willingness to refer me. And that comes from my ability to be able to manage and set expectations and deliver a level of service that you feel is referable. And if there's a time in this process that I feel like I can't deliver that level of service to you, it means more to me to say I'm not the right person for the job than it does for me to take you through this process like other people do and make it hellacious. Is that okay with you? So before we go on to the next slide, what do you think that does to the mindset of the consumer?
It's probably something you've never heard before.
Okay, that's probably 100%
It makes them more
true.
comfortable. I would think it makes them more comfortable.
Why does it make them more comfortable?
Because they're not
You're
going
giving
to
them
be
an
with
option
a
to
wall
opt
up
out.
for the sale.
It puts you into a position of a want-based relationship as opposed to a need-based relationship. See, every time you go into the dynamic of a meeting or a consultation, there's always that fear in people's mind, whether it be big or small. What happens if I don't like them? What happens if I don't agree with their offer? What happens if I don't think that the product's the best? At this point, you've taken that person who sits there with their arms crossed, whether it's metaphorically or physically, and you've given them the permission to say, I'm okay with you saying no because I'm also okay with telling you no. And it puts you more at a level playing field. Don't you agree?
Yes, for sure.
And because you've addressed it, before they've had time to really think about it, doesn't that elevate your ability to feel more connected with the borrower? Doesn't the borrower feel more connected with you because you've addressed something that, whether they're thinking it or not, makes them feel like you're concerned more about them than you are about yourself?
Sure, and it also takes that like I'm stuck or trapped feeling off the table and gets you back into a more consultative approach.
Okay, so this in and of itself, this statement in and of itself is largely the reason why people listen to the rest of the consultation. This is why people don't sit there and just nod and hear what you're saying and get that glazed look in their eye. This is what makes the relationship connect. This statement alone makes the relationship start on a great foundation. This is setting the stage. And this is the power behind if you meet with a realtor, if you meet with a financial planner. This statement in and of itself aligns you to be somebody of more value. And when you talk about how I'm better or I'm more service oriented or I care more, this is an example of how you psychologically can appeal to people in a way that you don't have to say, I care more. You can say it this way in this kind of permission to reject, and it puts everybody in a position of level. And it's a powerful, powerful emotional tool that your borrowers don't even understand that it's happening, but realize that they feel more connected. Does everybody agree with that?
Yep.
Yep.
Yes.
And so I always get, and this is before I get into anything with regards to mortgages. This is my opening 15 minutes that I go over with every one of my borrowers, because before I start talking about loans, they need to understand why. Before I take them into the auditorium, I need to explain to them what they're about to see and what they can expect to have happen. So this is the dialogue that occurs well before we start talking one penny about their income, their assets, their credit, anything. Everything hasn't been discussed yet. And in most respects, when they show up, most clients are ready to put their application information on the table and start going into it, and I kindly tell them to fold it up and put it on the floor between their legs. Because I always say, in order for you and I to move forward with this relationship, and listen to what I'm saying, I always refer to it as a relationship. I'm going into the presumed or assumed close, and that they're going to like me whether they know it or not. And so I say, before we enter into this relationship, I just need you to understand who's sitting on this side of the table, because I'm going to learn everything there is to know about you and more information than you probably share with anybody else in your life, and I take that as an extreme privilege. So before we continue, I just want you to get a little sense of who I am, because it'll make it feel and it'll make you understand why I do things the way that I do and why my team does it the way that they do. So I explain to them, going into the mortgage process, going into buying a home, it's kind of like flying in an airplane, okay? It's kind of like taking a trip. At some point, and Denise, you've heard me say this, it's going to be tough. Mm-hmm. It's going to be rough. It's going to be bumpy. Who of us have ever taken an airplane ride from one destination to the next and had a pilot come on the PA and go, hey guys, I'm going to guarantee you no turbulence from here to California. Sit back and relax. It's all under control. Has a pilot ever said that?
No.
Ever. Why is that?
Because they can't guarantee it.
I'm sorry. One more time, Larissa. Say it again.
They cannot guarantee it.
So why is it that when we take on our clients and we take them into this mortgage process, that we tell them that there's not going to be any turbulence? I'm willing to bet you there's not a single person on this call who looks at their borrowers in their face and says, I guarantee you that there won't be any turbulence. Instead, we say it a different way. I can handle this. We got this. Go ahead and set the closing date. We're going to move forward. None of us sit down and go, there's literally 100 things that could go wrong between now and closing. Please understand that my team and I do an exceptionally good job of navigating the turbulence, but there's going to be a point in time where it's going to get rough. And trust me when I say this, my team and I will do everything in our power to avoid it, but some things we just can't handle on our own. we're going to need your help. So if you go through this list of 100 potential challenges that could affect your closing, I want you to understand that we have flown this flight hundreds of times before, and we've never crashed. There'll be a point in time that you're going to hate me. I promise this. I will pick up the phone and I will call you, and you will hate me. And this is the point in the relationship when I'm meeting with my clients that they start to laugh. And they laugh because at that time they can't imagine why they would ever hate me, because we're doing such a good job setting and managing expectations. But when they laugh, I look at them and go, I'm being serious. And we get it because this is a very emotional and very stressful process. And there's literally many, many, many people who are going to touch your file, all of which have control over when you're going to close. So please understand that when we go through this process, I'm not going to invite you into the cabin of the airplane. You don't want that. You want to sit in first class and have the best flight attendant servicing you and attending to your needs. And I promise you that when we hit turbulence, I will do my best to help you know that it's coming. But more importantly, I'm not going to be jumping out of the airplane when it happens. I'm going to navigate through it, and we're going to get you to your destination and land this plane so that you and your family can accomplish the goals that you've hired me for. Is that fair?
Yes, that sounds good.
This document I actually mailed out after my application meeting with them. And I put a cover letter in there that says, I'm the pilot of your plane. And the cool part was that whenever we had turbulence or problem, I referenced something on the sheet. So for example, number 52, the realtor, the listing agent. You know what, Mr. Bauer? Here we are in the middle of the process. We're set to close in 3 weeks, but I got to tell you something. I just got a call from the listing agent says that the seller had something happen and they're going to have to delay the closing. So could you open up that turbulence sheet and go look at number 52? The realtor that is representing the seller has no control over their sellers. I just wanted to give you that heads up, and so our closing is going to be delayed. But I showed you this a couple weeks back, so just so you know, this is some of the things that could go wrong. Does that help or hurt in the initial consultation? Does this help or hurt your credibility as being a relational lender, or does it create more of a transaction and fear for your borrower?
Relational for sure.
Larissa?
Relational.
How about you, Travis? Nope, not there. What about you, David?
Definitely. I mean, this is building trust. It really is.
Why do you think I choose to show this to them in the very beginning, before they've even signed on a purchase agreement?
Because you're actually taking care of the buyers. You're letting them know up front all the potential things that could impact the process for them.
Right, right. And here's really the coolest part ever. When we do navigate the process and we go to closing and everything happens as it is expected, what does the client see?
A smooth landing.
Yeah, but the client really understands how great of a job you really did. This document helps you manage the bar of expectations. Most of our clients don't sit in the cockpit. They don't understand what everything does from the moment they walk in the door to the moment they close. All they feel is whether or not they're being managed or they're being communicated to. It's really the same thing as a pilot does. I will never want to sit in a cockpit of an airplane, nor do I care to understand how everything works up there. But I will tell you that I remember more about the flight attendant and the comfort of the seats than I remember about the pilot, and I remember about the airline. I remember about how it made me feel. The point of this document is really, really simple. It communicates the potentials of what could potentially happen through the process. So when you do have to make those calls, you're not blindsiding them, and you're actually deepening the relationship because you told them these are some things that could go wrong. So here's another analogy. I don't know if anybody else has had, but I've had several surgeries in my life for my knees and my arms from playing sports. And every time I went and talked to a doctor, usually the same doctor, because he was an orthopedic, he always gave me the same speech. You're going to be put under, you have anesthesia, you could potentially die, you could potentially, all the horrible things that a doctor has to tell you. So when you come out of your surgery and you're alive, what's the first thing you feel like?
Thank God.
And thank God. Exactly. Thank God. My doctor's awesome. But if the doctor doesn't tell you the worst things that could happen, he's liable. I don't think that any one of us on the call today sits down with our clients and really tells them the realities of what we do for a living and what we do to avoid the 85 things that are on this sheet. Instead, we simply nod and say, hey, no problem. It was my pleasure. Glad I could help. But I feel like we do ourselves a significant disservice if we're not adapting this part of the process into our conversations. And Denise has heard me say this with a couple of our clients. When we sit down in front of our clients, for example, the Pucketts, Denise, or even the Yanez's, tell me a little bit about how it is that I communicate it and what's the reaction from the borrower.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up the worst case scenarios possible. I mean, it almost felt like, because again, I had never done that before, it almost felt like, God, what a negative stick. I mean, he's like bringing up everything that could possibly happen that's a bad thing, but then he would turn it around and always have a positive and how it was going to be resolved. And I think they were grateful because later when we did call them, because things did come up, they were able to say, oh yeah, you told us that might happen. And I know you said that this is how we were going to handle it, so we were prepared. That makes sense.
It maintains the stage that you're setting. It maintains your desire to keep that relationship at the forefront, and it allows you to leverage that relationship when these moments come up. You can literally take the struggles of a file and turn them into referable moments. I literally can take an uncomfortable situation and get the client to refer us because of it. Not because I'm articulate with my words, but more to the fact that I've been upfront and honest with them about what could happen, and that is something that, again, nobody does. I'm willing to bet you that if you went out into the field and interviewed 1,500 loan officers, not a single one would present a list like this to their clients to help manage and set the bar of expectations. So by this time in the conversation, the clients are starting to get a sense of my qualifications. I've not told them how many years I've been in the business. I've not told them how many loans that I've closed directly. I've not told them what my rates are. I've not told them what my fees are. I've not told them anything really except for communicating value in a way that's not just using adjectives. So as we move into that, I get into this guy called Fred the Head. How many of us have ever heard of the term the reticular activator? Somebody, a few of you maybe have been around for a couple decades. You remember a guy by the name of Joe Stump. The reticular activator is that part in your brain that filters out all the irrelevant images and words that we hear every single day. So, Larissa, how many? Just because it is what is. How many? What kind of car do you drive?
A Ford Expedition.
Cool. How many other Ford Expeditions do you see on the road?
I see a ton of them all the time.
Right.
The minute I got it, I kept seeing a whole bunch of them.
How many BMW X5s do you see on the road?
I wouldn't even be able to tell you, to be honest with you.
How many Lincoln Navigators do you see on the road?
A few, quite a few.
Okay. But you see all the Ford Expeditions, correct?
Yeah, I spot them immediately.
Amazing. So when we have things in our life that are relevant to us, we notice them more than ever. And so at this stage in the conversation, I simply talk to my borrowers like this. I need you to understand that now that you're going into buying a home, you're gonna see more for sale signs. you're going to hear more people talking about appraisals, home insurance, buying a home, realtors, lenders than you've ever heard in your life before. And it's not because that stuff hasn't been happening around you, but because it's relevant in your life today. This is what's going to be relevant, to you, and you're going to pick up all these different conversations. I need you to understand that my business is very relationship based. As you can see up to this point, I've really, really differentiated myself in a way that makes, and I'm saying this in my head, I'm making this so that they recognize that my value is not about rates and fees and costs. It's about being able to manage their expectations of me. As we go through this process, part of what my expectations are for my clients are really this. I expect you guys to help us out. As I talked to you about the turbulence a bit ago, when we need something, I need your help in getting that back to me as soon as possible. And the other part is that as we go through the process, I need you guys to be aware of these conversations that are around you. And I'm going to ask you one simple favor. If my team and I have earned the right for a referral, I ask that you don't keep us a secret. I ask that you think of us first. Please talk to those people in your life that you hear talking about buying a home or refinancing. That's how my business has been built. Much the same way that you were referred to me, it's because that person who you know, like, and trust believes that I'm the right person to help you out. And as we established in the beginning, I need that help from you. So if that's acceptable to you, we can continue to move forward. And it really starts with, it starts with them. Much the same way that you referred to me, my business grows based on your ability to want to refer me. And so every action, every conversation, every dealings that you have with myself and my team, we need you to understand that our principal goal is obviously to get you to the closing. It's obviously to get you to go back to the person that referred you and say thank you. But ultimately, we want you to become an advocate of our business. We want you to tell a friend. We want you to tell coworkers. We want you to tell your family members that you're going through the process. And you'll have plenty of opportunity because you're going to be so excited talking about things that at some point somebody's going to ask you who you're getting your loan through. And we want you to advocate our business because that's what matters most to us. And then I get into the whole, this is how the process goes. This is how the process is going to look from start to finish. But we're not going to get into that part of the conversation today, largely due in part because I want to spend just a little bit more time before we're done on exactly what the stage was that I just got done setting. So can anybody explain to me how this differs from their conversation when they meet with a borrower for the first time?
Two things for me, David.
Yes, sir.
The first is talking about the areas that could be problematic in the future around the loan. Like that's uncomfortable, and I simultaneously understand what you're building as a result of it. So that's pretty cool. Like most loan officers don't go there because it is uncomfortable. We don't want to create a negative aspect, at least for myself. And you're creating expectations out of it, and you are asking for the referral. And you're creating a whole scenario for that to actually take place. And you're building trust through that.
So when and David, you and I had this conversation, I think a couple weeks back. If you and I were to sit down in front of the same client at two different times, based on how my conversation is with the client versus how your conversation is with the client, knowing that we have the same rates and fees, even if yours was a little bit cheaper, who do you think stands a better chance at winning the client?
Oh yeah, totally.
And that's the point that I guess.
You're in touch with the client and their personal emotions, needs, and wants in a way that I'm not touching. Right.
And that's the science behind having a relationship-based business. When we are commoditized like we are day in and day out because our industry has become so commoditized, people are seeking out that relationship. They're looking for that experience. People's experiences, as we started this conversation off, are built around a frame. Their experiences of a loan officer are predicated based on how their last loan transaction was. And whether you like it or not, you're going to be viewed in that same way. And if you choose to use the same rhetoric that the last person used, well, I care more, I'll be available 24/7. I work weekends. You're not really attaching yourself to that part of the brain that people make decisions with. The part of the brain that people make decisions with is the limbic part. That's the part that we deal with our emotions. That's the part that we evoke action with. Believe it or not, when we talk about facts and figures, most of the time the facts and the figures are not what pushes people to make a decision. Most of the time, it's how they feel. Would anybody agree that the last time they bought a significant item that they looked probably to make sure that the price was fair, but they really didn't go and try to find the cheapest product out there? If they had to deal with a human being, they probably went with somebody that they trusted or knew.
Right. It's true.
We just had a landscaper over to our house a couple days ago to give us a quote on landscaping. We met with one. He was a referral from somebody, and he came to the house, and we had a conversation, and we really liked him. So we said, great, let's go ahead and do this, without even questioning whether the price was fair or not. In my mind, it felt fair, but I didn't question whether or not he was selling me if he was 30% higher, 40% higher, even 20% higher. I felt like I could trust him, and it felt comfortable to me because he appealed to my emotions. He appealed to our emotions. And when you talk about a sale, that's our responsibility. It's not to be able to communicate our rates and fees, because that's not what people want. People ask that because they don't know any different. People don't know how to differentiate you from the average loan officer because they don't have the tools, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the expertise to ask you the questions that really matter. So back to the very first part of the conversation that we started this with. You have the permission to reject me. We're taking the questions and the feelings that people have, and we're tabling it. We're making it part of our presentation. By actually evoking those conversations, you create a huge, huge layer of trust. I laugh about this too sometimes. Maybe some of you have heard me say this, but when we have a significant other or a spouse in our life and they get dressed up and they walk into the room and they have to ask us, how do I look? And we go, wow, you look fantastic. There's a different feeling that's created when they walk into the room and we say, wow, you look fantastic, without them having to say something. The same response, but one was solicited and one was unsolicited. What happens to the one that's unsolicited?
You believe it. You trust it.
Right?
When it's solicited, you're like, well, maybe he just said that because I asked.
You believe it.
Just being nice.
Larissa, you just summed up the entire class. You believe it. And that's really why when you ask your clients the questions that you know they're thinking, they believe you because they didn't have to ask you. They know that you care because you beat them to the punch. You said it before they had to. Some people won't even ever ask the question. They'll just assume, or they'll frame it, or they'll believe it, and they'll make their first impression, and they'll take that, and they'll walk away with it. The reason this part of the process is so important is because every time that we get an at-bat, every time that we have a chance to meet with a consumer, we literally have 5 minutes or less to create a first impression. We have 5 minutes to convince them that the show they're about to see is exactly what you're telling them it's going to be. And you have 5 minutes to explain to them how valuable the relationship is with you. And you have that same 5 minutes to establish the fact that if they continue to work with you and choose to work with you, you're going to expect them to refer you, and you're going to ask them for referrals. Ladies and gentlemen, I created a business practice over 20 years where 63% of my closed loan volume, which was anywhere between 15 to 20 million a year by myself, was created solely on relationships, solely on referrals. I never bought a lead on Zillow. I never paid for a lead with a realtor. I had 5 to 6 realtors that I worked with, but a majority of my business came from my past clients. My database was my #1 source of business. That was not because I was the better salesman. It wasn't because I had better rates and fees, and it wasn't because I was better looking than the next. It was created because I was able to articulate my value in such a way that people believed and trusted what I was saying, and then my team delivered it. My clients advocate my business to this day, and I've not been in the business for 2.5 years. I still get clients, even this week, that call me up and say, hey, Doug, you referred to me. My clients are still advocating me to this day. The power of establishing that relationship is priceless. Every at-bat that you get, you need to understand your value and you need to be able to articulate it. The homework assignment that I want to give to you guys today before we go back to what last week's homework assignment was, because I want to see who had the greatest success, I want you guys over the next week, I want you guys to practice this conversation, and I want you guys to be prepared, and next week's class is going to be all about this. I want you guys to tell me an answer. I want you to answer one question for me. And Dave, maybe I've already asked you to do this. Why should I use you? And it's not me asking you that, it's your borrowers. Every time you sit in front of a client, your borrower is thinking it. Whether you like it or not, the borrower is thinking in their head, why should I use this person? Even if they were referred to you, they're still asking it. I have my script, I have my presentation, and believe it or not, that's usually the first thing that I talked about before I got into this presentation, the why. And again, that small piece is something that not another loan officer that I've ever run across does. Heck, you 5 don't even. And we work for the same company. There's only one thing that differentiates.
Sorry. You want us to
No,
do
go
a
ahead.
script as if we were talking to the borrower
I want you to write
on
a
why they
script.
should use it.
Yeah, it really doesn't even have to be to the borrower. This should be something that you can tell anybody. This should be something, I mean, Larissa, yours is very personal. Denise, I know what yours is. Yours is extremely personal. But if you can't answer the why that you're doing this, how are your clients supposed to know? If you don't know who you are to your borrowers, how are they going to ever know? That's a powerful, powerful, powerful statement. And it's a lot harder of an assignment than you might think.
I know it's hard. I'm already thinking.
Yeah, it's a conversation that over the years evolves. And I don't want you to get it confused with money. Money is a result. So that's your homework assignment for next week. Because again, when you meet with your borrowers, you literally have less than 5 minutes to create that impression and that frame that makes you different. And at that moment, they can decide whether they want to work with you or not, and whether they're going to work with you and refer you or just work with you and be done with it. I'm trying my best to teach you guys how to articulate your value. There's one thing that separates me from everyone else on this call. And there's one thing that separates Denise from everybody else on this call, and Travis from everybody else, and Kaysen, and David, and Larissa. What's the one thing that makes all this different from each other? We all work for the same company. What's the one thing that makes us different? Anybody have an idea?
Why.
What's that?
It's our why.
That is
Right.
true. Yep. I'm going to make it a little bit simpler.
We're all on this call. Try.
What's the one thing the one thing that separates between me and Larissa and me and Denise, if it was to come to sitting down and talking to a borrower, it's what comes out of my mouth that makes me different. I'm not any better of a loan officer than anybody else. I'm actually probably the worst loan officer on the call. I am horrible at guidelines. I'm horrible at matrices. I'm horrible at ratios. I'm horrible at all that stuff. I was never any good at it. To this day, I don't know how to run an AUS findings. Nobody would let me because they know how bad I was. The point is that I was really good at building relationships. The reason I was really good is because I was able to communicate my value in a way that nobody else could. And it became so comfortable and so conversational that I was able to get people to believe me and trust me. Not because I'm any different than you guys. I just said things in a way that people believed. And I want you guys to realize that the one reason that you guys have not seen significant success in your businesses doesn't have to do with fear, doesn't have to do with anything other than nobody's ever trained you. Nobody's ever really taught you how to be relational, be referable. And this class over the next several weeks and months, we will get into more and more detail on how to become more referable and more relational, and I will teach you how to orchestrate referral moments to yield business while you're doing business so that you can service the clients at the highest level, knowing that if you do that, they're going to refer you. The statistic is 60% of the people that are referred to you, so if you took 10 clients that have all been referred to you, 60% of those clients will refer you if you ask. 6 out of 10 will refer you during the process if you ask. So imagine getting 10 leads, how hard that is. Imagine your next 6 out of that 10 coming as an endorsement from another borrower. You started the call with how good it feels, right? Imagine how that feels if you were able to do that every single month. All right, guys, that's all my presentation really was about today. Was there any, did you guys like it? Was there value there?
Absolutely.
Yes, it was. Can you send me a copy of that thing, that list of things? That was pretty cool.
Yep. I'll send it to you. If you guys want, I'll attach. What's that?
Send it to all of us.
Yeah, could you? Yeah,
I'll put it on the when I post the replay. I'll attach it to the link.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So I want to hear a success story. Who has something to brag about from the call last week till today? Who got the most leads?
I have
I got one. I got one too.
I'm sorry, Denise. You said you got one.
I got one.
Larissa, how many did you get?
I only got one, but I gotta be honest, I didn't make enough calls. I know I could have gotten more.
Well, that was a choice. That's fine. Travis.
Yeah.
I had 3 referrals this week.
Nice.
Dave.
I got 3.
And Kaysen.
That was me. I got 3.
Oh, Kaysen got 3. Dave?
I got 2 referrals from a new realtor I'm wooing.
Nice. Nice. So we have a tie between Kaysen and Travis. All right. Which of those 3 have actually made application with you?
2 are refis.
2 are refis. Is that Travis?
Yeah, all 3, and 1 has an accepted offer now.
All right. Well, who votes Kaysen being the winner this week?
Okay.
Yep, 2 refis.
3 refis. You said all of them made all. You said all of them had made an application.
No, I've got 2 refis coming in. That's it. I think Travis is ahead of me.
Oh, Travis. Okay. Sometimes I can't distinguish the voice. Okay, Travis. Good job, buddy. Great pipeline.
Well, slow, but we're getting there.
Well, let me ask you this
Small
question.
pipeline,
What was the takeaway from this week, whether it was because of the call or not, but what was the aha moment for you this past week that really made you go, that feels really, really good?
How easy the call was.
How what?
How easy the call was. I mean, it was just, I was kind of dreading it. I don't really like, and it's one of those things like, wait a minute, I know these people, and making that call was turned into a nice conversation when I got hold of them. Every one of them. Not
So
one of them was a bad conversation. Even the person that I had trouble with, the ones that I was kind of dreading to see, that were, I'm not sure this guy's going to answer the phone, turned into a good conversation. Didn't get a lead from him, but, it was a good conversation.
Awesome. So is that something that you should stop doing?
Not a way. Not a chance.
Start doing.
How many calls did it take for you to get those 3?
One each.
You made a total of 3 calls and you got.
No,
3
I mean,
leads?
I'm sorry. My database is small, so one to each of those people. I only had to call them once. So.
But how many calls did you have? How many calls did you have to make that you actually got the leads for? Not how many times you have to call the client. How many people did you have to call before you got 3 leads?
I called 30.
Okay, so
I left a lot.
10%.
That's probably 15 of those are messages.
That's fine. So if we go back to the whole database theory, and for those of you that have paid attention to Carl White and Scotty Hudspeth, they say that your database is a 10% return on your investment every year. So if you have 100 people in your database, 10 people are going to do something every year. So Travis just proved it. 30, and he got 3.
That was Kaysen,
That
actually.
was Kaysen.
Oh, that was Kaysen. I'm totally lost, guys. I can't tell the difference anymore.
You guys sound the same.
God.
I know you do. You really do.
I will preface all my, this is Kaysen speaking. And
Yep. So, okay.
That's funny.
I'm sorry. So I gotta ask clarity one more time, and I mean no disrespect to this, so I do sincerely apologize.
No problem.
Who's the one that just got the 3 referrals out of the 30 phone calls?
That was Kaysen.
Kaysen did. Who was able to get 3 applications turned into the process this week?
That's Travis.
Travis. Travis, I'm asking you, how many leads, how many people did you have to call this week in order to get 3 applications?
I made 15 calls on Monday. And
15 calls on Monday in one day.
in one day. All realtors. I don't have a database yet, so.
Nope. I don't care who you called. The point is that you made calls.
Right.
And Larissa and Denise have heard me say this before. I don't care what you talk about. I just care that you talk. I just care that you talk to your clients. I just care that you talk to your realtors. If you're not getting enough business, it's largely due in part to the fact that you're not talking to enough people about what you do for a living and why you do it. And that's not to say that you can pick up the phone and sell people all the time. It's picking up the phone and just being yourselves. Larissa has had some tremendous success with her database at the beginning of the year because she was calling it. She had fun with it.
Yeah.
Denise, the same way. It's amazing how much these people love you guys and how easy it is to talk to people that already know you, like you, and trust you.
I tell you
Congratulations, guys. I'm so proud. So, Travis, because you got the 3 applications, I'm going to mail you something in the mail, and I want you to make sure you post it on Facebook, okay?
All right,
Awesome.
deal.
All right, guys. So next week's class, same thing. We're going to do it at noon. And next week's class, you guys are going to all take a couple minutes, and you're going to speak about your why.
Please give me a call at 770-765-5626,
Uh-oh.
and I can talk about your wants and needs and what the process is, et cetera, supply you with information.
What's he doing? David, what are you doing, buddy?
This is the process. Have a great day. Look forward to talking to you soon, and I will reach out again.
Is he making a message?
Leaving a message.
Hey, Dave?
Yeah, sorry.
What was that?
I had to leave a message.
We're like, wow, you really took your homework assignment and you are an overachiever.
Yep. Sorry about
Oh,
that.
sorry, Sherry.
I put you guys on.
Love it. Love it. All right, guys. Next week's call, 12 o'clock. I'll send out the invite. I look forward to it. Great week this week. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day. I'm honored to be a small part of your successes. If I can be of service in any way, don't feel like you got to wait till Fridays. Pick up the phone and give me a call. Send me an email. And remember, guys, you're better today than you were yesterday. Take care, guys. All the best.
Thank you. Happy Easter, everybody.
Happy Easter,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.